Religion creates mental instability and can create mental illness in general. This is a heavy topic, but we have to dive into this, and we're doing this on the Unleashed Alchemy YouTube channel. I am Tamara Temu. Thank you for joining me for another spicy episode of the Unleashed Alchemy YouTube channel, where on this channel we talk about going against the grain so that you can experience complete spiritual transformation, a complete spiritual revolution, and spiritual ecstasy in your life, in every single area of your life. So let's just jump right into this, right? So religion creates mental illness, all right? Emotional instability, mental unstableness, all right? How? Because religion gives people, it doesn't ask if you want it, it gives people borders. And with those borders, religion says, with fear, it's fear-based, you cannot go outside of these borders. You cannot go outside of these boundaries. Meanwhile, and this is a side note, many religions have no boundaries. Okay? That's a contradiction in itself. That's a totally different topic for another day. All right. Also, not only does religion give people borders and boundaries and tells people to, to how to stay within these boundaries, but it also gives people their friends. It chooses people's friends. I've seen where in some cases, it even chose the person's spouse. All right, so let's get to religion choosing friends and giving people their friends and telling people who they can be friends with. Religion tells you you can only talk and communicate with people and be friends with people who have certain beliefs. 9 times out of 10, those people that you are allowed to be friends with go to the same church or are in the same religion as you, who think like you, who talk like you, who perceive life like you, who may even dress like you. All right? And like I just said, in some cases, religions have chosen your spouse for you. Okay? Now, religion does not give choice. There is no choice in any religion. There's no choice in anything. So we talked about these borders, friendships, spouses. We can even extend that into careers. There's plenty of examples that I can give you, but the church that I grew up in, the religious cult that I grew up in, there were talks of what careers would be more holy or would keep people closer to God versus other careers that would take a person away from God. So people were often told, people had dreams of what they wanted to do, but if those dreams took them too far outside of that border that they were given, too far outside of that boundary that religion gave them, they were reeled back in and said, no, just choose this over here. This is safer and it's more holy. It will keep you closer to God and it will keep you closer to the church. All right. Also, as far as where to live, and I mean that quite literally. I remember when I was really just on the verge of physically leaving religion, and I had moved or was about to move, made plans, everything ready to go to move to New York City, and still went on with my plan. But I remember even a few weeks before the move, the church did everything that it could to put fear in me that I would somehow be separated from the love of Christ or from the love of God if I strayed away too far. tried to make me think that if I took this big move to this New York City, to this wonderful city, which I enjoyed myself in, by the way, when I did live there, that somehow I would be left out there by myself. That somehow this God up in heaven would turn his face away from me, would turn his love away from me, and I would be just roaming the world all alone because I moved to another city. This is what religion does, okay? And those are just a few examples. Also, when we talk about emotional instability, that takes me back to when I was talking about staying within borders, choosing friends, choosing your spouses, choosing your careers for you, choosing where to live. Religion does not say anything about doing what is aligned with your soul, doing what feels joyful. None of that is included in religion. All you hear in religion is suffering for Christ's sake, or suffering for fill in the blank sake. All this suffering. So can you imagine, we'll take spouse. If your spouse was chosen for you in your religion, imagine marrying someone because someone told you, oh, this particular person will help you build a relationship with God. Like, no bullshit. This is what happened. This is what I saw. This is what I witnessed. Imagine marrying someone for that reason. And then you wake up one day and you're like, what in the hell have I done? That is misery. And if you choose to stay in that, imagine you choose to stay in it because you're afraid to leave, because again, if you leave, that's stepping outside of the boundary that was given to you. Imagine the emotional turmoil that can play out in your mind first and then in your life over and over and over again. We can apply the same thing to people that have dreams and wanting to go into certain careers, but because they were told, well, this career may take you too far away from the church or from God or from God's grace and love. So instead, you choose a career that you think is going to keep you or help you stay within the boundaries of your religion. Same thing. You stay in it for how long, and you're afraid to leave because you want to stay within the boundaries. So now you're working a job, you're in this career that you can't stand because it is not aligned. It goes against what your soul wants. It is not aligned with your soul. Turmoil, emotional instability. All right? Which can lead to illness, which does lead to physical ailments, all right? Also, let's go back to friendships and having communications and relationships with people. And in this case, I'm not just talking about, well, I guess I am talking about all relationships. We can apply this to friendships, interpersonal conversation, dating. So let's get into it. So if you are told these are the types of friends that you need to have, that can develop mental slowness, okay? Slow development in your cognition and how you relate to other people. Why? Because if you're always around people who think like you and talk like you and have the same perspective, there's no growth and expansion in that whatsoever. If you hear anything outside of that, because again, that's taking you outside of your boundary. If you hear anything outside of that, all of a sudden it's going to cause some friction because you have only lived one way. You've only seen one way of living and existing. You have only been exposed to certain things because those certain things are within the boundary. Anything outside of that, you don't want. Remember, that's what religious programming says. So your communication can be blocked. You may have a hard time connecting with other people on any level because you have spent many years only talking to people who think like you. That's hard to produce friendships when you have existed that way. Even when it comes to dating, because your circle is within this framework, everything, all the people are within this box. Okay? So when you date, hey, you may struggle even having a dating life in general. Once you decide to leave the religion, okay, you can feel like a fish out of water. So let's say this is you. Let's say, you have physically left your religion. And I want you to understand, here's a side note, that you can be physically gone. And yet, if you have not gone internal, if you have just focused on you physically not going to church, physically and saying with your voice that you don't identify with a certain religion anymore, that you're not a part of that anymore, that is a step. Yes, that is a wonderful freedom step. There's another layer to it. It is going internal because now you have to take the thread out of that religious programming. That religious programming fabric has to be burned. Okay, we have to remove the thread and disintegrate it. Okay, because it has played out in every area. If we don't do that, it will continue to play out in every area of our lives, even with us being physically gone from the religion. Okay, so I needed to say that. So now going back to, let's just use dating as an example. So, you're starting to, meet new people, and perhaps you are starting to date. And maybe, you've gone out there a few times, you've gotten yourself around people in different environments. Yes, you're feeling like a fish out of water, but you're willing to experience this new life, this new freedom. But then, if that programming is still functioning in your life, what do you do instead? Instead of putting yourself out there, you retreat and you go within yourself, which can turn into isolation. So you're not retreating so you can deal with the programming. You're retreating because you want to isolate yourself. You've told yourself, well, I just don't want to be around people, when really it's not it. Really, you're feeling uncomfortable. Your nervous system is now adjusting to you being around people who don't think like you, who don't talk like you, who look different from you, who do not have the same perspectives as you. And instead of you just putting yourself in that and just existing in that, you've told yourself you don't want to be around anybody, or you don't feel like going anywhere. That is isolation. In isolation, especially extended periods of time in isolation, your mind can play tricks on you. We saw that during 2020. Okay, when that controlled experiment occurred, controlled but not controlled, people isolated. They flipped out in their minds. Your mind can play tricks on you. You can start to make up stories that don't exist. Your ego will tell you, well, see, no one likes you, or no one wants to be around you. And then you start to self-sabotage, which can, again, the self-sabotage can occur when you haven't dealt with the internal rewiring that needs to take place from religious programming. Perhaps you do have friendships that you've developed outside of that boundary, and you started dating, and then you slip back into that old operating system, and you start to that old operating starts to take form in your life again, and you start to say things, or it starts to show up in your behaviors where you have or start to self sabotage these new relationships that you have developed. So that is how, or one of the reasons, and this is just, listen, I can go on and on and on. This could actually be an entire series, which I might do, but I wanted to get this portion out first. So it is very important. You may be saying, well, why are we talking about religion now? Is this an attack against religion? This is not an attack. This is an eye-opening. This is what do we call this? I don't know what to call it, but this is, my intent is to open up your eyes. If you are leaving, you have your foot, you're on the fence about leaving your religion, perhaps you have left, but you still feel like something in your life is stuck and things are not moving. Well, my question to you is, have you gone within to look at how religious programming has played out in your life? So that is what my intent is with this video. All right, this is not to attack anything. And if you're watching this and you're a part of a religion, if you don't plan on leaving, stay. This ain't for you then. This video is not for you. But there's so many people that are stepping into their I am power and understanding that there are many ways to sovereignty and divinity. There are many ways to love. There are many ways to infinite intelligence. There is not just one way. How could the infinite intelligence just have one way? That doesn't even go together. Infinite means infinite, never ending. So how can there just be one way? How can there just be these boundaries? There isn't. Infinite intelligence is equal to expansion. And that's what we are here to do. That is what I came here to do. I came here in my own way. All of us have our own way to help elevate consciousness, to get us to look into the mirror once again and see God, and see Goddess, and see infinite intelligence, and see cosmic intelligence, and see love, whatever you want to call it. All right. It is not out there. It is in here. It is a part of us. We are fully connected to it, have always been connected to it. And now is the time for us to allow it to be expressed through us. Okay, so that is the end of today's episode. Thank you for joining me. I do offer one-on-one support in your spiritual odyssey. If you are desiring that and you feel called to have someone, not hold your hand, because I don't do that, but to support you, to get you from religious programming or programming otherwise to experience spiritual ecstasy, so that you are walking in your spiritual guidance, or confidence, and trusting your inner guidance. Okay, that you're walking in that, in your fullness, in confidence, and in power. Then you'll want to book a call with me so that you can experience a spiritual revolution in your life, so that you can experience spiritual transformation in every single part of your life. Book a call. The link to do that will be in the description box of this video. And until next time, cheers.